In the third episode, Kamari asked Millicent who she was. Millicent replied that she was just a passing noble. Kamari then invited Millicent to have a casual chat since this wasn't an official party. Hearing this, Millicent burst into laughter, confirming the rumor that Kamari was cheerful and carefree. The reason Kamari's troops won the war was because she granted her subordinates freedom, while she did nothing. With a hint of doubt, Kamari replied that if she were to step down, they would win in the blink of an eye. Millicent agreed, saying it would be boring that way. Millicent continued, stating that it was more like a massacre to show off a country's greatness, which was an insult to war. According to Millicent, someone who had insulted war greatly was Kamari. She then removed her mask and said that she didn't like the way Kamari lived. She wondered how Kamari could still be a Sikagutan after that, and why she dared to appear in public. As she turned away, Millicent introduced herself, and that's when Kamari remembered her past, when some people bullied her, one of whom looked like Millicent. Kamari could only stare in fear, and Millicent mentioned that she had come to seek revenge for what Kamari did 3 years ago. Suddenly, Millicent pulled out a knife and prepared to throw it at Kamari. Bilius quickly acted as a shield and pushed Kamari out of harm's way. Bilius suffered a stab wound to his back and fell. All the guests at the party panicked and fled upon seeing this. Vilhais ran towards Millicent, throwing several knives, but Millicent easily dodged the attacks. Kamari remained seated in shock, watching the chaos unfold. She nearly lost her life, saved only by Bilius. From behind, the Empress arrived and praised Millicent for daring to come and disrupt the party, believing that Millicent was ready to die. Millicent replied that she had no intention of ruining the party. Her goal was to kill the Empress and Armin Gandasblood, Kamari's father. After that, she would also kill Kamari. The Empress prepared to unleash her magic, but with agility, Millicent leaped backward and used Kamari as a hostage. Kamari could only tremble in fear. Whispering, Millicent mentioned that this was getting boring, and she wanted to have a serious duel with Kamari. Kamari was confused about what Millicent meant. Millicent stated that she was content with the current situation, as she had become a state fugitive and joined the Inverse Moon. Hearing this, the Empress asked if Inverse Moon followed the principle that death is the dream of the living and aimed to destroy Makaku throughout the country. Millicent didn't respond. She only told Kamari that she would kill her later, while making a small cut with her knife. Millicent added that she would make Kamari experience real death, something Makaku couldn't revive. After saying this, Millicent leaped into the air and successfully escaped using teleportation magic. After Millicent fled, Vilhais approached the still trembling Kamari and inquired about her condition. Kamari asked why Millicent was here when she hadn't done anything. Why did that person come to bully her again? 1 week later, Chastel appeared very angry and insisted on exterminating Inverse Moon. Vilhais, who was nearby, warned Chastel that acting rashly would make him their target because Inverse Moon possessed a ritual tool. Wounds caused by the ritual tool, with the power equivalent to Makaku, could not be healed by Makaku's healing abilities. The worst-case scenario was that he could actually die. Currently, the Imperial faction was holding a full-day meeting because there was a possibility of spies infiltrating. It seemed there was a teleportation gate created within the party space yesterday, and the teleportation only worked after 2 gates were installed. This meant that someone had infiltrated and created the gate before the party began. Hearing this, Chastel immediately wanted to gather his troops and take action. However, Vilhais stopped Chastel, saying that Kamari had given orders not to move until she returned. Chastel asked where Kamari had gone, and Vilhais replied that Kamari had gone to spy on the enemy without informing her, her closest advisor. Of course, Chastel protested, stating that her closest advisor was him, not Vilhais. In response, Vilhais sighed deeply, not wanting to lose, and asked Chastel if he knew the color of Kamari's underwear. Chastel, of course, couldn't answer that question. Vilhais was the victor. Elsewhere, Kamari was seen curled up in her room, still remembering the time when she was in school with Millicent. What Kamari remembered was that in those peaceful days, she suddenly made Millicent angry, which led to her being bullied. Kamari held her ground. thinking that Millicent and her friends were pitiful, as they only found joy in hurting others. However, at one point, Millicent forcibly took the pendant that Kamari's mother had given her, which Kamari was wearing at the time. This made Kamari furious. Millicent then acted even more ruthlessly, taking out a knife and threatening Kamari. Kamari couldn't recall anything beyond that point. When she opened her eyes, she was lying in a dirty and messy room. Now, Kamari realized that she wasn't a Shichigitten. She was just a recluse and felt ashamed to go outside. Therefore, she decided not to leave her house. At that moment, Vilhez arrived, inquiring about Kamari's well-being while bringing her favorite food, omelette rice. At the same time, Cutest was seen atop a tall building. He had a box containing a photo of Kamari in a swimsuit and a strand of her hair. Cutest intended to locate Kamari using his magic, but it required sacrificing the precious strand of Kamari's hair he possessed. With his magic, he was eventually able to pinpoint Kamari's whereabouts. Moving back to Kamari's room, Kamari asked why Vilhez was so kind to her and expressed concern for her. Vilhez had written a letter expressing her feelings and handed it to Kamari. Kamari accepted the letter and stored it away. Vilhez then continued, saying that many people were worried about Kamari, regardless of her abilities as a general or her intelligence. Before she could finish her sentence, a knife suddenly pierced Vilhez's stomach from behind. Yes, the perpetrator was Millicent. Vilhez fell helpless, and Kamari could do nothing. Millicent explained that she hadn't come to kill Kamari, but was preparing a much more tragic murder. If she did everything there and then, there would be too many disturbances. Therefore, Millicent asked Kamari to come to the location she had prepared. To Millicent, Kamari was someone weak and indecisive, but she was the one who upheld justice the most. Millicent took Vilhez with her and told Kamari that if she wanted Vilhez to return, she should come to the ruins of Castle La Neliant exactly at midnight. If she was even a second late, Millicent would truly kill Vilhez, and Kamari had to come alone. A few moments after Millicent left, Kamari decided to continue isolating herself in her room. However, she once again recalled the sacrifice Vilhez had made for her. She looked at the letter that Vilhez had just given her and decided to try reading it. In the letter, Vilhez shared that she first met Kamari 3 years ago when she was studying at the Imperial Academy. Vilhez was a poor student with no prospects, and in her opinion, someone like her deserved mistreatment from her classmates. At that time, a group of students, led by Millicent, bullied her. Vilhez remained silent as she was teased by Millicent and her friends. They considered Vilhez uninteresting because she didn't react. Then, cruelly, Millicent suggested that they should just kill her. Millicent was about to use her magic right in front of Vilhez. Vilhez pleaded with Millicent to stop everything, but she remained unmoved. At that moment, Kamari arrived and prevented Millicent from continuing her actions. Vilhez felt that her life had been dark and miserable, but at that time, she saw a bright light emanating from Kamari. However, things took a turn for the worse from that point forward. Millicent's target for bullying became Kamari, and Vilhez witnessed it all but couldn't do anything. She felt it was her fault for not being able to repay the kindness of the person who had saved her life. Eventually, Kamari withdrew into her room, and Millicent disappeared. That's why Vilhez wanted to seek redemption. After graduating from the academy, she decided to become a servant in the Gandasblood family. She volunteered to become Kamari's assistant upon hearing that Kamari was to be appointed as a Shichigitten. Tears welled up in Kamari's eyes, and they couldn't be held back. At the end of the letter, Vilhez mentioned that Kamari was an extraordinary person, stronger, kinder than anyone else, and shone much brighter than anyone. Vilhez also advised Kamari to ignore the words that came out of Millicent's returning life. If Kamari felt hurt, she could come to Vilhez, even though she had once betrayed her. Vilhez promised that she wouldn't make the same mistake again. Kamari's happiness was forgiveness, and it was also Vilhez's hope. After reading the letter, Kamari suddenly remembered and regretted why she had only just remembered that incident. After wiping away her tears, Kamari was determined to go and save Vilhez. Just as she was about to leave the room, Cutest, who was already there, greeted her. With his magic, Cutest also summoned Belius and Meliconsi. Kamari was overjoyed to see Belius fully recovered. The three of them said they would follow wherever Kamari went. But Kamari said she would handle everything on her own because it was her affair. She only hoped they would pray for her, as that alone gave her a lot of courage. The scene shifted to where Millicent was, accompanied by Johan and Vilhes as hostages. It was then that Johan realized that Millicent was a terrorist, and he shouldn't have worked with her. Millicent also injured Vilhes with her ritual knife. Johan panicked and said that Vilhes could really die from the knife. Millicent doubted Johan's intentions for joining Reverse Moon. She also asked Johan, "What's the point of killing each other if you can't die?" Johan began to answer that it was for the war, but before he could continue, Millicent incapacitated him with her knife. Johan fell to the ground. After that, Kamari arrived at the scene. This episode came to an end.